for me, I had God with me, and I was a good little Catholic girl, literally an altar girl, literally carrying a candle as big as I was, down, up to the altar every single Sunday, carrying the light, carrying the torch, good little girl. But I didn't have my own personal relationship with God and Source really until it started with this breakthrough. Wait a minute. God's always been with me, and my body's been with me, and my body is my access point to God. That's what I got. Didn't know that really before this breakthrough moment, which was 2 months before I got diagnosed with cancer and given a 5% chance to live while I was pregnant. And thank freaking God, literally and metaphorically, for that breakthrough right before the diagnosis, because cancer became my ultimate seminar where I got to meet myself, surrender, and become someone who had access to God only 24/7. And my life has become a co-creation with God ever since. I only had a 5% chance to live. And here I am.
Okay, I mean, you rarely hear of people who discover they have cancer while they are pregnant. How did you even figure out that you had cancer?
Yeah. Well, and that is quite a conversation because I had no symptoms and my life was like my dream come true. So I had gotten out of the domestic violence marriage, became a single mother that figured it out with a 2-year-old, working 3 jobs, going bankrupt, foreclosing on the house. I mean, I knew if I left my husband, I was going to be on my own. And I was. He signed his rights away, and it was just me and this beautiful little girl. And I did not know I could do it, but I was unwilling not to figure it out, right? So by the time I got diagnosed with cancer, I thought I had beat my past because I got married again. I had a thriving business. I was on the radio talking to hundreds of thousands of people every single week. 14 years later, I'm still on the radio in New York doing this, right? But cancer just felt so mean because I felt fine. And I really thought all this achievement meant I had outplayed, beat my past. And then I get diagnosed. And the reason I found out was because I was coaching a plastic surgeon and his wife. And they were like, Rebeccah, you saved our marriage. You're saving our family. We're so grateful for you. We know we're here for you to help us, but this thing on your arm doesn't look right. Come into the office at 7 a.m. tomorrow and let us take it off. So I go into the office at 7 a.m. the next day. They take this thing, and I know nothing about skin cancer. I was 34 years old. There's no family history of cancer. There's no symptoms going on in me. There is this little mole on my arm that I had already asked my primary doctor to refer me to a dermatologist about. And he said, no, we'd watch and wait. While I was pregnant, it changed, it grew. I didn't know malignant melanoma is like cells it's like a glacier, like you only see above the surface, and then there's all this. So, long story short, it had already spread. It was in my lymph nodes. It was the most aggressive melanoma that you could have, but they couldn't stage me officially until the baby was out. And it was a ride, but that's how I found out
Oh my God. So they couldn't tell you what stage you were
until the baby was
until
out.
now, why is that?
Because they inject radioactive dye into your system to stage you. So they can't do that while there's a baby, and they can't do the scans. And to your point, they don't really know what to do with a young, seemingly healthy woman who's pregnant when it comes to cancer. So I had this major surgery. The cancer was on my arm here. So they cut from my elbow, all the way up to my shoulder, down to the bone, took all these margins, and then took the baby out when I was 38 weeks pregnant. And 3 weeks later, did the staging of testing my lymph nodes, found cancer. Immediately, 2 weeks later, took all my lymph nodes. I've had 21 surgeries, and it was a ride. And my body never had time to heal from one surgery to the next. Then we started chemo, which that's a whole other Oprah because the chemo, thank God for my ability to have a healed relationship with my body so I could access divine guidance. Because without that, I ended up quitting chemo all against medical advice because I ended up with drop foot. All the nerves were dying down my right leg, and I literally couldn't use my leg. And I lost the arch in my foot. My toes were pointed like a ballerina with no arch. You couldn't move my foot. The first physical therapist that I saw said, "You're like a kid with cerebral palsy. You're never going to be able to walk again." So I fired her. But, and I would never suggest to anybody listening quit chemo if you have cancer. But what I want you to hear from my story is A, high functioning unhappiness is not meant to be your life. You silent is not meant to be your life. And your ability to access your own spirit and the highest version of you and source whatever that is for you means you never have to figure anything out ever again. You never have to feel stress or pressure ever again. And you can trust yourself when you're connected to your own spirit and divine guidance. And I trusted myself and I followed the guidance, and I really wasn't experiencing trauma while I went through cancer because the healed me was in charge of the mission called my life by the time I got diagnosed with cancer. And I would have never graduated myself from alignment not mattering, achievement mattering if I hadn't gone through it. And so I just